All right, we're at RSG Live here at the lounge. We've been doing a great number of series, interviews during this series, and just it's been great for me to do it. If you want to catch some of our other interviews, please go to realsportsguys.com. You can catch our other RSG Live interviews as well as our other content on realsportsguys.com. But what I've loved about these interviews, it's been a way for me to interview individuals who intersect with the world of sports in different ways. It's just been great. And one of the beauties of being able to do this podcast, but also my day job as an administrator, that over my time, I have an opportunity to get to know a lot of great students who come through the institutions I've worked at. And I've had that great experience at University of Wisconsin-Madison, as many of you know. That's where I reside. And so our guest today came from that connection. Every once in a while when you're in education, you meet someone, you say, okay, that's somebody that's going somewhere. You don't know what they're going to do, but you can sense when you meet them for the first time, they on the road to somewhere. And this individual more than went somewhere. He's a 6-time Emmy Award winner, filming on, working on some of the, incredible projects that have come out of the 30 for 30 suite of documentaries, as well as coming out of the E60. I've done a lot of different kind of sport documentaries. And the reason why this is important, when you think about it, when the world of sports kind of just shut down on us, we all found ourselves looking for something to cling on to. And we spent a lot of time watching old games or documentaries or having debates the month of May was all about Michael Jordan, all about all those conversations. And you have to think about, okay, who puts those things together? Well, our guest today does that. We have today on the RSG Live at the Lounge, Logan Cascia. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you? Good to see you, DeVon.
It's good to see you, man. One of the things that just amazed me. So this was weird. So I was, as I told you, I was looking at this documentary on foosball, and I went to a small liberal arts college. And foosball, for those of you who don't know, it's kind of like this soccer playing with, you have two people. They have all these different poles they can use, and you're kind of advancing the ball. It was something I knew nothing about until I went to college. But it's something that's on a lot of different campuses, but especially on small liberal arts campuses, like the college I went to, it was the thing. And then I saw you were connected and leading this project, and I was like, oh my goodness, I know I got to talk. You were already on my list to talk to, and I said, I need to talk to you about this. These conversations out, I like to start out with the origin story, like how you got here. And so I'd love to have you just kind of let our listeners hear kind of how you got to this point. What was your road to kind of getting to the point where you kind of have your own company, you work on these amazing projects that we'll talk a little bit about, but what was your road? How did you get here?
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me, man. And like you said, I was at Wisconsin. I graduated in 2012, and man, it seems like a while ago, but I had my first opportunity with sports, really. I was shooting for the athletic department. I was shooting the highlights on the field. And while I wanted to be in the stands with my friends, it was kind of a great initial start into shooting sports. And that was cool for me, shooting the live broadcast. What I really want to do is tell stories, which involves the live actual games, but more so telling stories and shooting cinematically. And then there's this intersection where I met another very good shooter who's from Madison, the father of a friend of mine, Bill Roach. I'm actually on set with him right now. He took interest in, I guess, me as just an up and coming student eager to learn. And I had like a very starter camera, and, Russell Wilson went to Wisconsin, and there was a feature. He called me at 6 a.m. one day and said, hey man, my daughter says you got a video camera. Could you shoot at the Capitol, tonight with Russell Wilson? And I jumped at the opportunity, and I knew I had to bust my butt because I knew it was a crazy opportunity. And, there's many more details we can get into, which I'm sure we will, but that was kind of the initial starting point, was that one opportunity to shoot for ESPN at Wisconsin.
It's one of those things I always tell our students, you have to just stay ready. Like you have to be ready for the moment. And I know in your world, it's about staying ready. It's like, being, jumping in the moment. You never know what's going to come. One thing can lead to another. So that was the first project you worked on for ESPN. Wow. with Russell
Yeah.
Wilson.
Yeah, it was a feature, and yeah, Badgers had to be amazing that year. And then I remember I definitely graduated. I definitely went to my classes, but there were moments when Bill had asked me, "Could you go shoot this feature with me in Michigan for the weekend?" And so I found myself leaving campus to start shooting, which would become my full-time job. And before I graduated, I created an LLC with another student who's now my business partner. Like you said, you have to always be on your toes. You have to be hungry. And I truly believe it's about the relationships you make, more so than book smarts at the end of the day, always.
Talk about when you think about some of the projects you worked on, like what are some of the projects when you think about it, they've kind of really moved you? Like you shot a number, we can go into a couple of them, but just from your own, when you think about the catalog of projects you worked on, what were some of the ones that kind of stood out to you at this point?
There's been so many. Like E60 does a lot of these great human interest stories that are either about famous athletes or unsung heroes you've never heard about. I'll go way back in the vault. How I even before Wisconsin, how I even got interested in film was we had a documentary project to film about a 5-minute documentary, and a lot of kids did like after school activities, the marching band. And my brother has a friend named Tommy Carroll who's been blind since he was 2, and
Wow.
he had bilateral retinoblastoma, and he had the cancer was radiated, so he lost his eyes. And so I knew about him. I knew he was inspiring. And in high school, I had the thought, hey, why don't I do my documentary on a blind skateboarder? And he's very good at skateboarding, and he also skis and wrestles. That was really what sent me on that journey of documentary stories, inspiring stories, and that's I guess kind of how I decided, I want to do film as a career. And I went to Wisconsin. It's not a film school, but I went there with like an intent to do film and media.
You worked on the story about Rob Menendez,
Yes.
incredible coach. I think it was called "Who Says I Can't." He won the Jimmy V Award.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like to like be up close and personal? It's amazing to watch it, and it's moving, especially someone who's played football, understands all the things behind it that make a team work. And even being able to demonstrate drills, a lot of coaches like to get in there, but his ability to be able to lead in that space, given his own personal challenges. What was that like to be right there filming that story?
Yeah, that was a cool one too. That was recently for SC Featured. It was very cool meeting Rob. We got to see how he interacts with his players. And when I heard about this assignment, the story is about Rob Mendez, who's a football coach on the JV football team in Northern California. And he had this condition. He was born with no arms and legs. And so as you watch the documentary, you see how he grew up. But then you think initially when you get the brief that, oh man, this might be a sad story. How am I going to react when I'm filming in the field? You don't feel sorry for the guy. He's so like hilarious and so funny and kind spirited that you're just like, he's just anyone else. Just he's who he is, and it's very impressive what he's accomplished. But then you just forget he's a coach. So
yeah, another one I love that you worked on, that the one about Blackfeet Boxing, about the on the reservation, Native women boxing. I mean, these are powerful stories. And there's so much I think I learned when I watched it, just about there's things I knew because of the work I do, but just it wasn't as glaring and in your face as it was described, but just the power of that one. Talk a little bit about that experience for people who may not have had a chance to watch it a little bit, but you're in a different kind of environment. What was it like to be there?
Right. And that's another one where I knew when I got the brief, I'm like, this is a powerful story. Again, It's not about a famous athlete you've heard of. It's someone you haven't heard of. And the story is something that most people never have heard of. I never knew this was a problem that was going on. So Blackfeet Boxing, Not Invisible, was a story I did that was a 30 for 30 short about a girl named Donna Kipp, who was kind of our central figure, but she stands for everyone in her community and reservation. It's a Native American reservation in Montana called the Blackfeet. And her dad, Frank Kipp, would train these girls to get better at self-defense, because many women were just missing off the reservation. They were kidnapped, presumably murdered, and she was fighting for something called Missing Murdered Indigenous Woman, and she'd write that on her boxing tape before she started. And a story like that, it's just so important today, especially with the craziness and atrocities going on in the world. It's just it opens your eyes to a story you never knew existed, and hopefully we're using the vehicle of sports to kind of disseminate these stories that no one else would ever hear about.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of turning to what we've been experiencing, most people I've talked to, you've had to change the way you work and think differently. But you also, most people have just been affected by what's been going on. And, as someone who captures stories and who really thinks about these issues, I mean, in the kind of work you've been doing, what has it been like? First of all, personally, how did you have to adjust, given just the shutdown of everything? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. But then, what was it, as you were seeing these images, as someone who pays attention to images, what was going through your head, and what were you thinking about in terms of how your work and what you think you need to be doing going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I remember it to this day, the fateful day, I think it was March 11th. I was flying out to Toronto to do a shoot with Pascal Siakam on the Raptors, and I was sitting in the plane, and actually, I'm actually on a show right now called Campus Eats, which is a Big Ten Network show. But the host had texted me and said, "Hey guys, it just got declared a pandemic 10 minutes ago. If you don't want to continue, I understand." And I was just about to take off for pretty much like 3 weeks on the road nonstop. So I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm on the plane. Let's go. 4 hours of that flight, I landed, and like the world turned upside down. Before I got through customs, and I have like 10 Pelican cases, which you might be able to see back there.
See.
So yeah, just piled on. Everything just canceled. Like the bottom fell out. The shoot, they said the NBA season was postponed. Tom Hanks has coronavirus. Donovan Mitchell tested positive. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, like, are we going to shoot our NBA shoot tomorrow? Sure enough, that canceled. Shoots in LA, canceled. The Campus Eats show was postponed. And I stood there, not even through customs, like, this is surreal. Like, what's happening? It was like out of a apocalyptic movie. But, I got back home, and I found obviously there's so many negative effects associated with the disease and everything. I was trying to find a silver lining in finding time to get back to personal life. We adopted a puppy. So I found some silver lining in the slowdown. At first, it was a little worrisome because I'm on the road constantly. If I'm not working. And if I'm not working, I'm not making money. So it's my livelihood. So that was frightening. But then, you realize we're all in this together, and we're all in the same boat. As cliche as it sounds, I as a freelancer, I know it wasn't something I did wrong. No one's working right now.
Yeah.
And rather than finding a different trade to do, things are slowly coming back. And we're just doing the best practice stuff. Like, I have my branded Campus Eats mask we wear on this show, and it's going to be some growing pains, but I can see it slowly creeping back. But sports is still slowed down, of course. There's less ESPN shoots right now, but it's coming back.
Well, hey, I wanted this to kind of be an opening to our conversation. I know it's something that I'd love to have you come back. But let's end with, the project that you led, Foosballers. How did that project come around? And it's just something different. A lot of people don't know what foosball is, but how involved in that project, and obviously you're playing a bigger role in this project. How did this project come around, and talk a little bit about that project?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so this one was different. This wasn't commissioned. This was completely independent, and the director actually approached me. This guy named Joe. This was, I think it was like 4 years ago, and I had taken some time off because I just had some ankle surgery, and I was coming back to LA. And I met him through David Zucker, who's another Wisconsin-born director. He directed Airplane. And so he was David's assistant, and another guy was his assistant. And they approached me and said, hey, we have this foosball feature documentary. They saw some of my work, and they wanted to talk about it. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. I would love to apply the like cinematic principles that I do in the ESPN pieces to an independent project where no one's telling you what to do.
Yeah.
I was given a producer credit. We were all producers on an independent film. And so that was really liberating in being able to do any style you wanted. And I didn't know anything about foosball either. I truly didn't. And when you watch the documentary, it's almost like central casting, all these characters and players, and you want to figure out, you know, what their journey is, who they are, what makes them who they are, and you learn about the subculture that most people, myself included, never knew existed. So that one was quite the journey.
Wow. So, you know, if there's a project you want to work on in the future, what is there something that if you want, you know, you'd like to do independently? Is there a project that's something that you would like to work on in the future that you kind of have on your wish list?
We had some. I also should have mentioned this was completely crowdfunded too. So we actually, how this also happened was we made a Kickstarter video, and to my complete surprise, we raised $40,000 to do it. And it sounds like a lot of money, but really it just got us by to go to all these locations. We haven't even paid ourselves yet. I don't know if we will, if something happens to the movie. But yes, I just want to touch on that was one other way to get indie projects going, is get it funded by, as I learned at my MHR class at Wisconsin, family, friends, or fools, the 3 Fs.
Yes.
I think this is a combination of the 3 who gave us money to make a film about foosballers. But you know, it seems like you must have enjoyed it, so hopefully it did its job.
Well, yeah, it struck you know, something with me in my own college days as someone who had no idea about it prior to going to college. It wasn't something that was part of my thing, but I found like it was, I was competitive, so it was something to compete. You know, something you could do while you're drinking beer, Wisconsin thing. But it was just I found it was funny how, you know, at that time in the late 80s, going into the 90s, you know, so much was different. Hip hop was coming in, so the space was changing. It was just a different kind of, you know, a transition on many college campuses, especially predominantly white institutions. And you have this place where we can kind of come together and kind of find a commonality. And so it was just strange that, like, I didn't think anybody would think about it, let alone would film something like that.
Yeah.
Well, but hey, you know, I know you're going to be working on great things. I know you're on this shoot with the kind of the Big Ten, with the campus eats, where you're kind of highlighting, you know, spots in different college towns where folks can grub a little bit.
That's right.
You were in Lincoln. I just passed through Lincoln not too long ago as well. So I'm sure you're going to be showcasing some dishes that will get my salivating and knowing I need to stop in there when I visit those campuses. But where can people find you? I always want to make sure before we close down to let folks know where they can find you. Where can people find you? About your work?
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, Cascia Films, at Cascia Films is my handle on Instagram. I generally only post the photos that are edited, and I may post like maybe 1 or 2 a year where I'm like, this is really like my, you know, what I want to show off from all my travels, personal and for work. So that's a good spot. I do some stories. Most people are familiar with me when I'm getting back on the road, but I used to run through the airport, always barely making my flight. So there's a lot of stories like that on Instagram. Let's see. And then CassiaFilms.com, my website. We just revised it for the new year, and we're getting some content up there. Trying to keep everyone posted with the new trailers we're allowed to release and the new projects.
Well, hey, Logan, we want to thank you for joining us on RSG Live. You know, we know we're going to have you back, but it was just good to kind of finally get you on. Hopefully, great for our listeners to get to know who you are. You know, I knew you were Jim, and I just want to kind of push it out, let you know, let other folks know what you're doing behind the scenes, and keep doing great work. Keep following your passion. I always said, you know, if you can figure out what you want to do and find your passion, you can figure out how to make money. And you are definitely representing that, you know, and I know some of the folks here from Wisconsin, the Badgers, we appreciate you, and good luck, and have fun on your shoot.
Oh, thanks so much, DeVon. It's great talking, man. I hope we do this again. There's much more to chat with you, so I really appreciate the time, man.
Hey, I'm loving it. Well, this is Real Sports Guys. This is RSG Live at the Lounge with my man, Logan Cascia. Cascia. He is doing it all, man. Check him out. Check out the films he's worked with. Good luck with everything. See y'all all on the other side.